Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this. Hey guys, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast, or welcome back to the podcast. I'm Allistair McCall. In this week's episode of What It Takes, I have the world number one squash player, Mohamed El Shorbagy. A little bit about Mohamed. He was born on the 12th of January in 1991. He's a professional squash player who represents Egypt, and he reached a career high world ranking of number one in November of 2014. In fact, he has held the world ranking for 40 months, which is a record for an Egyptian player. And as we currently spoke on this podcast, he was the number one, or is the number one, should I say. Mohamed has won a World Open. He's also won the British Open 3 times. He was also a 2-time junior world champion. So a lot of experience, a lot of accolades there. He's still relatively young. He's 28. Which means that he has a lot more years in front of him, especially in squash. We've seen some of the players go on to play their best squash in their mid-30s. For some of you out there, especially living in the United States, who might not know the game of squash that well, it's an incredibly physically demanding sport. It's, some of these athletes are the most mentally toughest athletes I've come across. I've had the privilege to work with many great squash players as well. It's also a sport that I believe should be in the Olympic Games. It definitely does tick all the boxes in terms of competition and just the sheer toughness of it. It's also a great spectator sport as well. So anyway, as we know, the Champion Minded podcast is all about preparation. It's about mindset. It's about getting into the lifestyles of some of the best athletes. We get to interview some of the world champions, Olympians, so it's really, really cool to get to speak to these amazing performers. So without further ado, here is Mohamed El Shorbagy. Hey Mohamed, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's you've been one of these guys that I wanted to get on here for a long, long time. We've tried it a few times over the last year, but we're going to finally get it done, right?
Yeah, we finally made it happen.
Yeah, no, it's so tough, especially with our schedules and your schedule of traveling all over the world and playing in a different city every week. It's tough to track you guys down, but super you could join us today. So, Mohamed, let's start here. Where did it all start for you? At what age and we know you're from Egypt, of course, but where did it all start for you?
It started back in Alexandria, where I'm from, and I was 8 years old, and my uncle played squash for fun, and I used to be a swimmer first, from when I was 5 years old till I was 10, and then when I was 8, my uncle took me to the squash court one day, and yeah, I mean, tried it, and I really liked it, really enjoyed it. But I remember when I got into the squash building, I just found just a lot of people holding rackets, running after a small squash ball, black squash ball, a small one. And I was like wondering, what are these people doing? And just couldn't understand anything. And yeah, from that time, running after that squash ball became my life after, for so many years.
Mm-hmm. So what age did you start?
I was 8 when I started.
8. Okay. Is that pretty late for squash professionals? Because in tennis and golf we hear about players starting at 3 and 4 and all these ridiculous ages. Is that more or less the average in squash for a professional?
I mean, it depends. I mean, my brother started holding a racket when he was 5, 6 years old. So he didn't go with a coach, but I used to go with a coach when I was 8. So he used to just come around and just play like that. He just tried to hit a few balls. Some people started younger, some people started older. I mean, it depends, to be honest. I wouldn't say there is a specific age. I would say, obviously, I wouldn't wanna. I wouldn't think you should start late. Also, I mean, I think 8 is a good age to start. You're not too young. You're not too old. I think that's an average good age to start playing any sport, I would say.
And I mean, at 8, did you continue playing other sports? Did you continue to swim, or was squash your main sport?
I know I was in the first team actually in swimming back in my local club in Alexandria, and I kept swimming. I think my mother wanted me to keep swimming.
Mm-hmm.
I hated swimming, and till I was 10 years old, I was doing both playing squash and swimming at the same time. I remember I had to go to these swimming lessons at 6 a.m. before I started school every morning, and it was an outdoor swimming pool, and some during winter as well, and it was raining, and I still did it, but I mean, the body gets used to it. It's not a problem when you're used to actually swim in the winter. But I wouldn't do it now. But I never liked it, and then when I was 10, I won the nationals under 11 in Egypt, and from that time. I think pretty much everyone was convinced that was the sport for me.
Okay, so already you shot to quite a high level at the age of 11, 3 years after starting to play. When was it that you knew you wanted to be a squash player?
I mean, I was 10 years old when I won my first nationals under 11, and I remember Gamal Awad, who was my first proper coach.
Mm-hmm.
He was ex-world number 2. After Jahangir Khan, he played the longest match in history with him. They played the longest game together. He came to my club, brought him up before the nationals I won. They wanted him to coach some of the under-19s for like a couple of weeks. Some of the older guys, in my club, for a couple of weeks to just give them some of his experience. And he wasn't allowed to go with anyone else except the under-19s. And I think I was playing in one of the courts, and he came had a look while I was playing, and then he came to my mom out of the blue and told her, "I just watched your son. I think your son could be a world champion one day. I'm just gonna ask the people at the club that I want to go on court with him." And I think hearing something like this when your parents still, they have nothing in their mind at the time that they want you to be professional. They want you to be world number 1. At that time I'm 10, and then they hear something like this from someone like him is obviously makes you dream, And
Sure.
I think, and from that moment, he became my coach for 4 years till he passed away. I became so close to him. He is one of the main reason of. He taught me a lot of things, and if there is one thing he taught me the mental side of the game when I was a kid. He put me under a lot of pressure when I was a kid in training, and I remember he would make me train for 2 continuous hours from when I was 10, 11 years old without going outside, without having a break, and under pressure. And I was so close to him. I was even an hour with him on the phone before he died as well, and
Wow.
he had a big influence in my life. And he taught me a lot, definitely, mentally. And he used to always tell me that the training I'm putting you under right now is going to live with you for the rest of your life. And he was right, I think.
Yeah, and those words have proven to this day. So we're going to come back to the mindset side, because obviously Champion Minded is very much about the mindset side and the preparation. But I'm looking at the world rankings right now, and obviously you're number 1. You first became number 1 in November 2014. Is that correct?
Yeah. After the US Open, I won.
That's correct. Now, looking at the world rankings, Mohamed, I mean, there's 7 Egyptians in the top 10? Do I see this correctly? 6 or 7 Egyptians in the top 10?
Yeah. There are many Egyptians right now in the top 10.
Okay. Now, I don't know if there is another sport that has so much dominance. I mean, I know badminton obviously has a tradition with Indonesia and China. Tennis in previous years has had domination with the Swedish back in the 80s. But I don't know if there's another sport that has 7 of the same countrymen or women in the top 10. Explain to me why Egypt is so strong in squash.
I always believe that every country had a time where they take over the sport, and then it finish, and then another country take over. Obviously, we try to make it as long as we can, but the Australians used to have 7 players inside the top 10 at some point in squash too. And back in the, I think the 90s, 80s, 90s, I think they had 7 players inside the top 10, and that was such a strong generation as well. And Palmer was the kind of David Palmer was the young player out of that generation. He was kind of the last big 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 player from that generation that came out. And now the Egyptians obviously are having such a good time as well. And I think the reason for that would be like we always had one or two great players that were at the top of the ranking that a lot of us wanted to be like them. I remember when I was 15, Shabana was world number one at the time, Amr Shabana, and I looked at him and I wanted to be like him, and I'm like, yeah. And then I could see when I started to get inside the top 20, I was 17 years old. Shabana was still world number one, and I started having these big matches with him. And I'm like, no, I want to achieve what he's doing. I want to do more than what he's doing. And then he became world number one for 33 months, and that made him the longest ever Egyptian to hold that ranking. And when I was a kid, I was like thinking, I want to get there one day, and I want to try to break that, you know. And luckily this month I broke that. I mean, luckily this month I just did my 40th month.
Wow.
But for now, you know, another kid in Egypt is looking at that, and one day he will break that too, you know, because records are meant to be broken, and one day another Egyptian will take over and will want to break that. And yeah, I mean, I was always inspired as a kid by Shabana, for example, and Shabana obviously was inspired by someone who was at the top of the ranking at the time when he was a kid. Right now, there are kids who obviously looking at all the Egyptians at the top of the ranking want to be like them. So I think just generations coming after generations. That's for me the idea. But you know, when I was 17, 18, I saw at that time Shabana and Karim Darwish and Rami. There were the three of them that were world number 1 and 2 and 3. And at that time I was thinking there will be no way another country that can. That was the first time a country that hold the first three positions from the same country. And at that time I was thinking there is no way that another generation in Egypt will become like that again. And then when last year in Hong Kong there were 4 Egyptians who reached the semi-final in Hong Kong. It was me, my brother Ali Farag and Tariq. So we broke that, you know, and I felt I was proud to be part of that.
Wow. Well, you see, you know, talking about domination and you know, we have a look at the Jamaican sprinters as well, right? We've had Johan Blake, we've obviously had Usain Bolt, we've had a lot of sprinters that have come out of Jamaica in the last 10 years. So just exactly what you're saying there right now, all of a sudden there's like this dominance and then it comes and it goes. But getting back to your junior days, because this is where I'm very interested, Mohamed, because you were a good junior. You won 2 World Junior Opens, the same as Rami. Explain to me the difference between the development in Egypt with the juniors and, for example, the rest of the world. Do you spoke about pressure. You spoke about your coach putting more pressure on you. Would you say that as a junior in Egypt that the difference is there's more playing partners, there's more competition, there's pressure every day in practice? Would you put it down to that?
I would say there is more competition, definitely. I mean, if you look at the under 11 draw in Egypt, you're going to have at least 300 kids playing.
Wow.
At least. I mean, I left to England when I was 15 years old, so I carried on my training base in England when I was in the juniors. But I think the reason of why Egyptians are stronger than others in juniors in other countries, I think due to the amount of competitions we have in Egypt. We have at least, I think, 12, 13 competition during the season, and there are so many kids playing. There are so many good juniors. Each junior plays differently. The crowd, you get a lot of crowd. Some people cheering against you, some people cheering for you, and you get to experience all these kind of things. So when you have to experience them outside, you have already played through them many times in Egypt, and I think that makes us stronger when it comes to juniors, definitely.
So you'd put it down to more of a pressured environment as a junior?
I would say I was definitely under a lot of pressure in terms of environment. I was, let's say, I was not the favorite player for my federation in my junior, and I had to work my I had to work myself through to actually get there. I had to always play against my opponent, against the referee, against the crowd to actually be there. And like my mentality in juniors, for me to actually be the best junior, my Gamal Awad used to always tell me, for you to be the best junior right now, don't give yourself the excuse that everyone's cheering against, like a lot of people are cheering against you. You see, I was the only player coming out from Alexandria. I was trying to beat the all the rest of the juniors who are coming from Cairo, who are all from Cairo, and I was the first to come out from Alexandria, like properly challenging them, which was for the federation, not the. We had a lot of women from Alexandria at the time, but for the guys, I was kind of the first to properly challenge the players from Cairo, you know, and for the federation, that was not the. I was not the favorite for something like this to happen, you know, and. So my Gamal Awad used to always tell me, so okay, so if you wanna be the best junior, if you wanna be the best player in the world in juniors, what you need to do now is you need to train yourself so hard to make your level so much better. So if something gonna affect you during the match, your level still is that much ahead that will still be good enough to win. So the way I train mentally is, okay, during the match I'm gonna play against 3 opponents. I'm gonna play against my squash opponent, the referee, and the crowd. And I need to beat the 3, and I need to find the way to beat the 3 opponents in one match, and I need to do it over 5 matches to win the tournament. That was how I trained mentally in juniors. So I think going through these things kind of helped me mentally a lot to be a good junior, and it helped me through the senior level as well. And yeah, I think the mental side, as much as all these situations happen in my junior, it helped me a lot in the professional career, definitely mentally.
Yeah, it definitely shows. I mean, it's molded you who you are, and now today you're, well, you know, looking at the women's rankings as well. I mean, we got 3 Egyptians in the top 5 there. We have Raneem at number 1. Would you say that the men's dominance of the game in the last 10 years has influenced the women as well more? Because you know, mentioning the Australians, mentioning the English, they were always top of the women's rankings. Of course, we had Nicole David for a long time as well. But all of a sudden now we see 3 Egyptian women in the top 5.
I mean, to be honest, I saw that generation coming in Egypt because we were all the same generation in terms of men and women. I mean, for example, El Taib, Noor Shirbini, and Gohar, they were a few years younger than me, but I've seen them playing, you know, 10 juniors, they always had amazing potential. And they were always so much better than the rest, than other countries. Yeah, I mean, once they got to the seniors, they were still playing. They were only 16, 17 years old, and they were almost getting to the top 20 and close to the top 10. I mean, Shirbini won her world championship at 18, I think, or 19, and I think that's a generation that they all raised each other by the amount of competition they had to play against each other, and then when they had to play in the senior, they were just so much better than everyone, and I think they took the game to another level completely. I do believe, for example, Raneem was by herself as an Egyptian at the time, and amazing talent, and she's world number 1 right now. And but I always believe that she always, you know, kind of, I don't know, like she had a lot of talent, but she kind of got there to world number 1 when she was, I think, 27, 26, something like that. And for anyone who watched her play, would always think, why didn't she get to world number 1 earlier? You know, why wasn't she had? I mean, till today, when you watch her play, you think when she loses matches, how is she losing? You know, but there are so many matches. Sometimes she loses because she loses focus, mentally let her down a little bit. You know, and then I believe when Noor Shirbin and El Tayyib started raising their game and starting challenging Raneem, that's when actually Raneem had to say, hold on, okay, I need to challenge myself more. I need to raise my game now. I need to work on my game more. And I think that helped Raneem a little bit to be even a better squash player today. So I think the women in Egypt, they all helped, because they're all close to each other. They all helped each other to get stronger. And and because of this, they're all at the top of the game right now.
Now, obviously, we talk about compatriots and teammates, etc. And squash is an individual sport, but sometimes you have to play as a team. But would you say the Egyptians are a close-knit bunch, or do they, do you guys, obviously there's rivalries, but do you hang out together? Do you help each other?
I would say, for me, I've lived in England since I was 15. There are some players who likes to train with everyone. Some players who just like to do their own thing. I am the kind of guy who I just like to do my own thing. I play with them literally in every tournament I see them, and I don't think training with my opponent is the greatest idea ever, to be honest with you. I believe in just doing my own things with my team, seeing what went wrong in my tournaments. Even if whether I won or lost the tournament, I need to see what went wrong, and then come back and see what happens. You have the summer break and the 2 months in the summer, and I don't believe training with everyone there back in Egypt is a good idea when you have the whole 2 months. You need to have them. I just believe in just working with my team and just coming to the tournament and figure out what's happening, who is ready, who is not, who is ready for the season, and who has trained hard. You always sense these things at the beginning of the season. But if I've already been training with everyone, they would have known whether I trained hard or not. Whether I'm ready for the season or not. Why would I expose myself in an individual sport? While for others, someone like my brother, for example, he likes to go to Egypt. He likes to train with everyone. I remember Shaban was like that too. He didn't mind training with everyone. He was there. So while someone like Rami, me and him are a bit similar. We like to do our own things. He did his own things in New York. I did my own things in England. So everyone does whatever works for him.
As you know, I did a little bit of work for a short period with Rami back in 2014 when he played the World Open. That was an incredible match as well, and a very tough one for you. But talking about rivalries, who would you say have been your main rivals over the last 5-6 years?
It's funny actually because I was having a conversation with Rami yesterday. Me and Rami were talking yesterday together, and we were saying that I was telling him I'm sorry about you being out of the World Champs this year and stuff, and I hope to see you back soon and stuff. But at the same time, I was telling him with you being out, Greg is not here, Nick is gone, Shabana is gone. The tour feels lonely for me. It just it's a bit lonely because I have played with them for so many years in my career. For the last 10 years, I played with them. And even though that they're not my generation, like Nick is 12 years older than me, Rami is 4 years older than me. Like now I'm playing with the guys who are actually my generation, Farag, my brother, Gawad. These are the guys who are actually the same age as me. But it's still because I was there at the top at a young age, it's always made me feel I was part of that older generation. And they kind of always, they always felt that I was part of them too. So the tour feel a bit lonely for me, not having these guys. But and we were having a chat about it a little bit yesterday, and because I'm sure when he's back playing as well, for him it's the same. It's he's used to playing Greg, Nick, and all these guys, and now it's just a different tour. And these guys now who are new are playing a different game. They're moving you differently, and they're just bringing something completely different to the game, which is in terms of physically, you just need to train hard to deal with it. But mentally, it's harder to deal with it because they're amazing squash players, but they're players who are still building up their own CV now. While every time I play Greg, it's like two heavyweights playing each other. Me and Rami playing against each other, they're two heavyweights playing each other, and I think the sport right now it's a kind of a moment where there is a shift happening. Definitely, that new generation are coming to prove that they're the player that they're ruling the squash world right now. And you see Ali Farag this season is playing so well. The last couple of years I've been challenged by so many of them, and I'm trying to hold them off as much as I can. And what is making it hard for me mentally is because when I was the one coming up the ranking, I had Greg, Nick, Shabana, all these guys holding me up together, until I had to prove that, no, hold on, guys, I'm one of you guys. I'm going to try to beat you guys as well. But right now, I feel like I'm the only one who's trying to hold these guys up. I haven't had someone with me helping me a little bit to do that. You know what I mean? So, which is okay. It's something that I have to deal with mentally. But as I said, next month, actually, Farag is becoming world number one. He's overtaking me in the ranking. It's another challenge for me, which will make me train harder. Another challenge for me mentally. But this challenge, I love these challenges because I always can test myself. I had a big challenge 2 years ago to try to get back to world number one. This is another challenge by another player now, and let's see what happens. We have the world champs in a couple of weeks, and I'll definitely be ready for him and for everyone there.
Let's talk about becoming number one. What changed for you, if anything, when you became number one? Did you feel you were more hunted? Did you feel guys were more up for you?
Everyone always tries to beat the world number one, and everyone tries to beat the world champion. But if you are the world number one and the world champion, it just doubles the pressure. And I have played with that through the whole last year, having both titles together. And to be honest, every time you go on court, you can always give so many excuses of why you lose. You can say that the guy played amazing against you, but you go on court, you have to expect that the other guy is going to play amazing against you, and you have to expect yourself as a world number one to beat them, because holding that world number one spot, the hard thing about it is that it's easy to watch. Let's say I'm going to watch Diego playing Ali playing together one match. I'm going to see them playing at a level, but I know that when they play against me, they're going to play at a completely different level, because that's what happens. I remember when I was chasing that world number one, when, for example, Shabana was world number one. Whenever I played him, I found myself playing something that I never thought I could play. I always played so much better than I could play, because that's what you do whenever you play the best. You have nothing to lose. You're gonna give it the match of your life. So I have to, every tournament I'm going. I'm playing someone who is gonna play the match of his life against me, and I have to expect myself to find a way to beat them. And obviously sometimes it doesn't work, and it's okay. You will learn from, but you want to do it in most of your matches during the year so you can stay at the top.
Let's talk about coaching. You obviously took on David Palmer, who is obviously a former world number one and a good friend of mine. You took him on around about, 2 years ago? 2016, was it?
It was 2017, 2017, summer 2017.
Okay, first of all, why David, and what has he brought to your game?
I had a bad 2016-17 season where I lost 3 first-round matches. I won 1 title during the season. My ranking got back from world number 1 to world number 3. I lost motivation, lost a lot of hunger. I had a lot of personal issues off court that made me don't want to be even on court, which is, I've always been the kind of guy who always only had to just play squash and just think about my game. And then, I felt like I need to do something. And then I came in April, I was playing a tournament in Egypt, and in the quarterfinal, I had my brother, and I lost in 24 minutes. Literally, that was the shortest match I lost in my life. And even the third game, I lost 11-1. And from 5-1 down, I didn't even try. Literally with my sweaty clothes on the way back to the hotel, 5 minutes after I lost, with my sweaty clothes, I got David's number. I called him and I told him, David, I just played my brother in the quarterfinal of one of our World Series events. I lost 24 minutes. Like, as I barely spoke to him in my life. Barely spoke to David, spoke to him only once in my life. So yeah, lost to him 24 minutes. I'm not hungry to play. I don't know what's happening this season. I'm confused. I'm not sure what's happening with my game, and I want to come back next season. Can you help me with this? He told me, yeah, it's a challenge. Let's do it. He must have thought, what is this crazy guy? Seriously. Who doesn't know me? He's calling me out of the blue like this.
Yeah.
And then before we finished the phone call, I told him, but David, just one last thing. You have to know that I don't accept being number 3. I don't accept being number 2. I only accept number 1. The only reason why I told him this, because I wanted him to know how mentally I work. The thing about it, when I said that I only accept number 1, it doesn't mean that I want to only be. It's not about being number 1. It's about playing like a winner. Even if I'm the world number 300, I don't care if I'm the world number 300. If I go in a match, lose 11 love, but I still played like a winner there, and I played and I fought every point, I don't regret any second I lost in this match. What I was upset about myself this season, that I was giving up in matches. I was not motivated. That is definitely that is not acceptable for me. Literally after I finished this phone call, I started getting really excited about playing the game again, even though that I was only going to go and meet him in September, like 6 months after. But we already at that time started talking about the game, started knowing how we're going to help each other. He needed to understand me as much as I understand him, because I think it's a coach responsibility to understand his athlete as much as so he can know my needs as well in my game. He's not gonna, even if he was a great squash player himself, he still cannot just teach me the way he was taught. He needs to adapt to me as well at the same time, which he was very good at. So we started chatting about stuff, and then literally the season wasn't ended yet. I still had Dubai, the World Series final, which had the best 8 players in the world in it. And I won this tournament, and that's what the last tournament of the season. And I think winning this tournament kind of gave a message to my opponents that hold on a second, I'm not done. I'm far away from being done. I'm gonna have the summer break, because that was the last time before the summer break. I'm gonna have the summer break. I'm gonna train so bloody hard in this summer, and let's see what's gonna happen next season. I went to David. We started training hard, and I think I reached 7 finals in a row after. Where I won 6 events out of 7. The World Champs was one of them. 3 World Series finals, 3 World Series events were 3 out of the 7 tournaments as well. And we had a very good run during that season where I became world number 1, came back to world number 1 again. I think I played 12 finals out of 14 events in the season. I had an amazing season, definitely. And he definitely, one of the main reasons why I had to choose him as well. You can meet a lot of great squash coaches, but sometimes in your career you need someone who have been in that situation where you lose motivation, because any athlete, no matter how great you are, any athletes have went through a period and a phase that they lost motivation in their career. And this is part of the journey and part of the job. But some athletes take them a year or 2 to come back again to who they are, and some athletes take them a couple of months. So lucky enough, I made a wise choice by going to someone who has been there and know how it feels.
I mean, I've known David for quite a few years now, obviously about 10 years, and had the privilege to work alongside him and visit him when he was down here in Orlando in Florida at his academy. And just, I mean, obviously he was a former world number 1 himself, but his work ethic, his approach, his attention to details, he definitely did transition into a great coach as well, and not just a great player. So super.
To be honest with you, if I knew at the time that he moved to Ithaca from Florida, I wouldn't have called him, probably because of the weather. That's where he moved. I would have probably wished he was still in Florida so I can enjoy the beach.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome down here, especially at this time of the year where the rest of America is pretty cold. We're still sitting in sunny weather. So awesome.
I'm going to Chicago next week.
Oh man, you know. Apparently, last month in Chicago, there was a day where it was colder than the Antarctic. It was minus 40 degrees. I mean, no, thank you. I mean, that's just that's crazy.
For motivating me to go there.
All right, cool. This has been an awesome conversation, Mohamed. Thank you again for taking the time. But a few more questions. Advice for young players or athletes wanting to not just excel in the game of squash, but in sports. What advice would you have for some young athletes?
I would say to really enjoy it, but give your heart every time you go on court. Fight for every point, even if you're 10 love down. Don't even give up in any second during the match, because the moment you give up even 1 point, believe me, a lot of people who are watching you, a lot of your opponents who are watching you, they will probably not care about all the points you lost, but once they see that you gave up in 1 point, they will put that in their notes. And when they put that in their note, they will know that you have a weak point. So never ever give any weak signs whenever you're playing on court.
I want to come in there because I'm sure you've got a few more tips, but that is powerful advice because, just letting up, or you build a reputation, right? You build a reputation as that player who never gives up, or you build a reputation as that player who does give up or crack, right? So it's so important to
Exactly.
be on top of it the whole time, because you start to get a reputation of what type of player you are. You're a quitter or you're a fighter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about. I love this one. Superstitions. Any superstitions?
Not really. Only one probably. Whenever I hold my racket, the Technifiber sign at the bottom of the racket and the handle, I need it to be in a specific way. So I always hold the racket in a certain way the whole time.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't keep changing the grip. I always make sure that the Technifiber sign, the triangle, is going down. Is down. It's since I was a kid. Since I played Technifiber since I was 15. I've always had that superstitious.
Yeah.
Never changed.
It's a question I ask because, getting a lot of different athletes on here, I always ask about their superstitions, and some of them will be, we have a look at, I haven't had Nadal on here, Rafael Nadal, but you know about him and his water bottles, the way he places his water bottles at each changeover.
Yeah.
We have some athletes who put their left sock on before their right sock. You hear some of the most bizarre superstitions, but athletes are known to be very, very superstitious as well, so... Good stuff.
Actually, whenever I play someone with a certain T-shirt and I lose to them, I make sure I wear that T-shirt again whenever I play them the next time, so I can beat them with that T-shirt.
How do you keep memory of that? Do you keep a journal? How do you remember what shirt you played in before?
I don't need to keep it in my notes. Whenever I lose a match, I never ever lose it. I never ever forget it. I always have it in my mind.
Hey, that's what happens when you're number one. You don't lose many matches, so you can remember, right? So, tell us about part of Champion Minded, the book. We talk about preparation, mindset, all these things. Tell us about the hour before you play. Do you have a certain routine? Do you have a certain, preparation 1 hour before you play?
I always, like an hour before I play, it's exactly when I'm by myself. Don't talk to anyone. That's when I'm in my, I always give that vibe from my face is don't talk to me. If there is someone passing by me and they see my face, don't talk to me. This is not the time to talk to me right now. I like to visualize before my match. Definitely, I sit and just sit on the floor late, just close my eyes, just like to replay the match in my head before I even go on court. So if a situation happens on court, I feel like I've already been through it in my mind. And then when I warm up, I always just do my routine, just stay focused, and I'm just in my zone really. Just was by myself and do my visualizing and just get into my warm up before the match.
Is there any specific meal that you have before you play? Do you stick to a certain food type or anything like that?
I just have like between 4 hours and a half, 5 hours before the match. I would just have a salad with a little bit of protein. Definitely not eat much something heavy before the match. And then maybe like an hour before the match, maybe I'll have like a little bit of fruit or something, just to keep a little something, just tiny something to in my stomach before the match. That's all.
Talking about journaling, do you journal? Do you write down at the end of each day what your practices and matches? Do you take notes?
Sometimes I would take notes for my matches. Yes.
Or David does that for you now.
No, we do it together. We did together, actually. We would watch matches together, and we'll write notes, and we'll say, this is what we need to work on. This is a plan. We'll talk about the plan for our next opponents. Especially for someone like me, that there are players who have a game plan, who naturally have a game that they always play that game every time they go on court, and there are some players who are tacticians, who they play differently every time they go on court depending on who they play against. I'm that kind of a player who I'm a tacticianist. I like to play each opponent differently, depending. I have my own game plan always, but I always believe that I have my game A plan, which is my own game, but I think you can have an A plus game, which is the game that your opponent hates to play against.
Mohamed, would you call yourself a perfectionist?
Yeah.
And, would you say sometimes perfection gets in the way of playing your best or progressing because you're so stuck on wanting it a certain way?
Yeah, no, sometimes being a perfectionist can make you, I agree completely with that answer, because I think, because sometimes you want to hit a drop shot, for example, and you want to make sure that it's going so well. And sometimes that goes at 90%, but that 90% is good enough for you to win the point. But you're still not happy with it because you want it to go 100%. And that's when the error can happen sometimes.
That's one trait that I've noticed, Mohamed, in top performers, champion performers, is that they are either perfectionist or near perfectionist, because they're trying to better their craft and their skill every single day. I mean, like, for champions, good is not good enough. Would you agree with that?
100%. Even 100%. Good is not good enough. Nothing is good enough. Even if you win the tournament, it's never good enough.
Yeah, it's almost an obsession. I know Conor McGregor had a quote out saying it's an obsession. It's an everyday obsession to get better. That's what drives the champions. And I mean, you sound pretty similar to that. So, all right, awesome. Last few questions, Mohamed, and it's quick fire. So either just one word or a sentence. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Favorite city?
Bristol.
Bristol. Okay.
Yeah, where I live.
Okay. Didn't expect that one. I was probably expecting a Monaco or something like that. But all right. And it's definitely for the weather, right? Bristol has the best weather all year round, I hear.
Not really, actually. No. No, but the problem is, that's it. I always believe that you don't get Bristol till you go and see it. It's an amazing city.
Okay, I got to visit Bristol. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Easy to find a sushi restaurant these days all over the world, right?
Exactly.
Favorite other sports to watch besides squash?
Tennis.
Okay, any favorite player?
I love Djokovic. I believe that Djokovic, I don't know, I've always seen in the media that the media always puts that Federer and Nadal are the greatest, but Djokovic is just good.
You know what? I have to agree.
And for me, that the three of them are... Yeah, and for me, the three of them are great, but Djokovic is the only one out of these three who had to play through all of this all his career. And he was so strong mentally that he fought through all of this and still doesn't get as much credit as them. And when I look at the stats, he has way better stats than the both of them.
Yeah.
Like, he has beaten both of them more than they beat him. And I feel like he's on his way to actually pass Nadal and Federer in terms of Grand Slams. He won all the Masters, which none of Nadal or Federer done. I just feel I don't know. He has definitely beaten them more than they beat him. And when each one of them was at his peak, I think Djokovic was way more unplayable than the both of them.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, you can see it in the amount of tournaments. Like I think Djokovic lost only twice during the year. When one of the year that he was one number one, he lost only twice or three times the whole year. And I don't think he gets as much credit as them.
No,
And
no.
I never understood the reason.
No, I think society, and especially that rivalry of Rafa and Roger. We want to have that, and then all of a sudden this guy comes and spoils the party, and still to this day, Roger and Rafa are the favorites. But it's funny you should. And here's the thing: he's playing even better now, and Roger
Way better.
Yeah,
Way better.
and I say I agree with you. I think he is going to pass. I think Roger's on 20 slams, 21 slams at the moment. I do believe
20.
Novak will, because
20, yeah.
And his dedication, his discipline, to his fitness, to his mindset, everything is just just as a professional.
I mean, the guy he won. The guy not only won the last 3 Grand Slams, the last 3 finals he won 3-0.
Yeah.
Like, how this is mentally unbelievable, actually.
Yeah.
To do that, not just win the final, but to win 3-0, 3-0, 3-0 in your last 3 Grand Slams, it's unbelievable. And I saw the way that he beat Nadal in the final of the Australian Open. I don't think Nadal played great tennis, but I'm not a tennis expert, obviously, but I will tell you what I saw mentally in the match. Because when I watch a tennis match, technically, obviously, I'm not a tennis player, but as an athlete, I would see things mentally.
Mm-hmm.
The way Nadal played, it's like he actually did not believe he could beat Djokovic that day.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't believe he could beat him.
I agree.
And I have not seen many times in my life seeing Nadal go into a match like this, where he does not believe he can win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, I actually spoke to Carlos Moya, the coach of Nadal, the day after the final, and he said, it was just, Novak is just on another level right now. He's just playing unbelievable. And like you said, the psychological part of it as well is, he's building up that reputation of, you're going to have to play your best today to beat me. And I'm going to be here until the very, very last ball. I mean, he's such an incredible competitor. He really is.
Yeah. But I think it's lucky for the tennis, that you have 3 players like Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer are playing at the same level, at the same generation, and each one of them hold all this amount of Grand Slams. Like, when did ever that happen in any sport? You have that amount of Grand Slams being held by 3 players in the same generation. It's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, phenomenal. All right, moving on. Favorite, we'll probably actually cover that one with Novak, but favorite athlete, male and female, past or present?
I would say LeBron James and Muhammad Ali. And favorite, I would say Serena, actually.
Yeah, also total dominance there as well. I mean, it's just phenomenal. 20 years pretty much at the top, right? I mean, it's incredible.
Just mentally, the way she, like all the athletes I would always like are the athletes who have done it mentally more than their sport talent. It's more mentally for me.
Yeah, you look on.
Side I respect more than anything else in sport.
Yeah, you look on YouTube and you see videos of Serena in 1999, 1998 winning tournaments. I mean, that's like 20 years ago. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, anyway.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
Okay, person you'd love to have lunch with. They can be dead or alive.
I would say maybe, but Denzel Washington.
Reason?
I don't know. I just like his movies, and I like the way he talks and send a message with his movies, And I don't know. I just he's the way he. There is. I think that someone can give a good speech, and another thing that someone have a way of getting his speech through to you. And I always feel that with Denzel Washington as an actor,
Yeah, I have to agree with you. What was the movie called? Training Day, was it?
Training Day, yeah. The one he won an Oscar for.
Yeah, awesome movie. Favorite movie of all time?
Anything for Denzel Washington.
Okay. Loyalty. If you weren't a pro squash player, what would you be? Or would you have liked to have been?
I would have liked to be something in the sport field, definitely. I love racket sport in general. I think racket sports are great sports. I love table tennis, I love badminton, I love tennis. So I would have loved to be something to do with racket sports.
Cool. Last question before we get to the final. One word to describe yourself? If you could just choose one word.
Mm, Direct, maybe. I would say calculated.
Calculated. Never had that one before here, so I like it. Originality.
Yeah.
Mohammed, this has been special. I know the listeners out there are really going to enjoy this one. I mean, it's a podcast where we get into the minds, we get into the programs, the lifestyles of champion athletes, and I mean, no better honor to speak to the number one squash player in the world and world champion. If some of the listeners want to connect with you or follow you on social media, what would be the best platforms?
Through my Facebook page, I mean, Instagram, Twitter, anything really.
Are
All my
those
social media are there.
are those under Mohamed El Shorbagy, or what's the address on those?
Mo El Shorbagy.
Okay, cool stuff. And final question: in your opinion, what does it take to be champion-minded?
I think to be champion, in my opinion, is in sports you're gonna have a lot of ups and downs, but in order to accept the good days, you have to accept the bad days first in order to deserve these good days. And when you start to accept these bad days, then the good days will come after, I promise.
Mohamed, it's been a pleasure. Wish you much success for the rest of the season.
Thank you so much, and it was great to speak to you.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that one with Mohamed El Shorbagy. Remember that this podcast is available on iTunes and on YouTube. Join me on social media, on Twitter, at Allistair McCall, on Facebook, Allistair McCall page, and on Instagram, Be Champion Minded. So remember, you were made for greatness. Now go do the work. Until next time, stay champion minded, guys.